Hello humans, it's your host Corey, and this week we're going to talk about the body pillar. Now, as you know, I am in the middle of many things right now. I've been trying to stay very consistent with uploading the episodes every 2 weeks, but it's been very hard for me when I'm producing the audiobook. I have a keynote presentation. I'm driving to Peoria next week on Wednesday to give a keynote, so I'm very excited about that. But I have been very distracted trying to do all of the things and get everything ready. And so I am sharing another audiobook excerpt with you this week from the production of A Well Cared For Human. To preface that, I want to give a little bit of information about the excerpt that I'm going to be sharing. So it's from chapter 4, in which I go into more detail about the 4 pillars and how we invest in each aspect of our relationship with ourselves, but specifically our relationship with our body. And so for me, I will be sharing information about all the struggles I had with my body over the years. So that ranged from everything from the abuse that I endured, the trauma, there's the eating disorder that resulted from that, there's the tendency to feel unsafe in the body that resulted from that, all of the disconnect that happened when I was a teenager. I developed a habit of self-harm in relation to the trauma that I was going through. And so all of the ways my body had to heal, not just from what other things that had happened to it, but from what I had done to it personally as well over the years, and how I rebuilt that relationship. And so if you are someone who struggles with your relationship with your body, if it was criticized a lot when you were growing up like I was, or if you're hearing a lot of negative narratives in the world about the kind of body you have now, I really hope that you find this episode useful, because I share not just my own struggles, but specifically the method and formula that I used to rebuild that relationship with my body, which I feel is so important, that we appreciate our bodies and what they allow us to do by moving through this world and being present in this life. And so thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing what you think about it. So I'll see you on the other side. Chapter 4, The 4 Pillars. As I write this, self-care has become a rather hot topic. It's not difficult to find advice on how to best take care of yourself. Sleep more, eat better, get some exercise, get fresh air, stay off your phone, and touch some grass. This is all great advice. However, I have found it to be more helpful to think of my well-being as a relationship with myself, rather than as a list of boxes I need to check off. A relationship is fluid. It has to be built and maintained. Sometimes it's strong and we feel indestructible. Other times it's shaky and needs more care and attention. Check boxes just don't convey the same level of depth and complexity. The good news is that we can build and maintain this relationship, and before I tell you how, let me ask this. If you were to rate your relationship with yourself today, what kind of score would you give it? Is it great? Or at the very least, mostly okay? Maybe a smidge bruised? Or has it just walked away from a 10-car pileup, unsure of how it's even still alive? Perhaps your relationship with yourself feels more like it's in a 20-year coma and may never wake again. Or perhaps, before now, you'd never even considered your well-being as a relationship. Whatever the state of your relationship with yourself, great or oblivious or in the gutter, self-care practices are the tools we use to build and maintain that relationship. However, if those tools are to be of any use to us, we have to know the condition of the relationship first, and also what capacity we have for investing in that relationship. If you're currently in burnout, for example, you don't have much capacity. All your circuits are fried. The gas tank is empty. Same for depression. There's only going to be so much you can do in a day before you're exhausted again. Let's say I have a box of adhesive bandages. It might even be the fancy box of bandages with the different sizes, but it's still a box of bandages. And bandages won't work for every medical emergency. For cuts and scrapes, sure, have a bandage. But if someone offered you a bandage to cover your chest full of bullet wounds, while you're still bleeding all over yourself, your prognosis will not be good. And this is my issue with most self-care advice. It doesn't account for the personal nature of self-care. Even if you and I were both going through a divorce, and the conditions of these divorces were perfectly identical. We lived in the same neighborhood, we made the same amount of money, we were the same race, we identified as the same gender, and we had the same reason for our divorce, our experiences could still be miles apart. Maybe your divorce provided a deep sense of relief and the freedom that you've been longing for. Meanwhile, mine triggered long ingrained patterns of abandonment, of not being lovable, tied to my personal history of abuse. You respond by making plans to move to Provence and run a bed and breakfast on a lavender farm. Meanwhile, I become a depressed little hermit who has had nothing but takeout all week. This example is to illustrate that even in the exact same situation, people react differently and will need different things. And it's one of the many reasons why my mother never got better. She was offered a lot of bandages when what she really needed was a whole triage team to sew her back together again. I won't rant here about the failings of the American healthcare system or our non-existent mental health care system, for now. I will only say that in order to address the very personal nature of self-care, it will be more helpful for me to outline the 4 pillars of your well-being. Once you are made aware of these 4 pillars, of your relationship with yourself, you will know where you can apply all that honesty and trust, respect, and open communication that we just talked about in the last chapter. You'll also have a better sense of how to choose self-care tasks that will be most helpful to you. This way, you will have the power to build a strong relationship with yourself that will be flexible enough to serve you no matter where you are in your life now. Hopefully, this will also help with the discouragement. Often, we give up on building a relationship with ourselves too soon because we have listened to the bad bandage advice, saw no results, and spiraled into hopelessness. So many of us work hard to make time for self-care. We even do the self-care, but still wonder why we don't feel better after weeks or months or possibly years of investment. Often it's because all that effort is being invested in the wrong place. Someone once told me, "Corey, you just need to relax. Run a hot bath, climb in the tub with some wine and a good book. You'll feel so much better." Telling someone with my family history to get drunk in the tub is not great self-care advice. It might be fun, but it's not going to improve my relationship with myself. Not only because of my family history of alcoholism, but because wine is also one of my migraine triggers. And if I wake up with a migraine the day after having terrible rest, it's going to feel pretty hard to love myself and muster up some admiration from my great self-care efforts. So let's begin with the blueprint. I'll walk you through building your relationship with yourself, showing you how to build your own 4-pillared wellness temple. Then you get to pick where the furniture goes, the decor, the corpses of your enemies, the coffee machine, me, the system, you, the details. Got it? Why can't I just tell you which self-care practices to do? Because only you will know what you need to heal. The pillars, and why I call them that. I want you to imagine a Grecian temple, one of the old ones like the Parthenon, except that yours is much smaller. This temple of yours has 4 pillars holding up that big heavy roof. The first pillar is your body pillar. This pillar represents your relationship with your body, how you feel about it, how you think about it, how you speak about it. The second pillar is your mind and emotions. I put mind, which we could also call thoughts, and emotions together because they often co-arise. They are deeply entwined. How often have you had an experience where your mind starts thinking up wild scenarios, and you found that your emotions were all too willing to spiral into a panic right alongside your thoughts? And the reverse is also true. You may have woken up with a sense of unease or depression, and your mind gets right to work on creating reasons why you feel the way that you do. Maybe it decides to remind you of a really embarrassing thing that happened 20 years ago, just because it's trying to match your energy. So helpful. Thoughts and feelings often feed and shape each other, so I honor that by letting them share a pillar. The third pillar represents your relationship with your spirit. Spirit is a vague word that encapsulates many things. Do you have a great relationship with joy, creativity, playfulness, curiosity, your spirituality, with awe and wonder? Or are you suspicious of every ounce of happiness that flows your way? When someone acts too happy around you, does your lip curl up in disdain before you crab scuttle off into some dark corner hoping to wait it out until all the good feelings are gone? If you are a religious or a spiritual person, this pillar is also where your relationship with God or the universe would reside. The fourth pillar represents your relationship with connection. I used to call this pillar others, but that wasn't quite right. Others implies that the focus is on other people, that what they think or say or do matters. Connection is a better word for this pillar because it allows us to talk about the importance of building healthy, loving relationships with others. But it also allows you to look at your relationship with connection itself. How comfortable are you with vulnerability, with opening up? How safe do you feel putting yourself out there and meeting other people? Can you share your feelings or your thoughts or your ideas without fear of judgment or ridicule or criticism? Oof, not me, at least not all the time. But having a good relationship with vulnerability is a powerful tool in our well-being toolkit. This pillar is also home to our boundary work. These are the 4 pillars, the 4 areas of well-being: body, mind and emotions, spirit, and connection. If your pillars are strong enough, they can take quite a bit of damage and still stand. They can even survive a bombing like the real Parthenon did in 1687 when a shootout between some Ottomans and Venetians caused heavy damage. Yet look at her now, over 300 years later and still harassed by adoring tourists daily. No matter how many times this relationship with yourself collapses to complete and total ruin, you will always have the power to rebuild it, if you know how, where, and when to invest the work. It's not always fun, but it can always be done. Collapse is less likely the more pillars that you have up and functional. Distributing the heavy weight of living across multiple areas of your life will make it feel a lot lighter and more manageable. It will be harder for a bad experience to knock you off balance if you have at least 2 or 3 pillars in working order. That said, don't be discouraged if you don't have a single pillar to your name today. For a long time, I didn't either. In fact, allow me to show you just how bad things can get before they get better. The body pillar. I don't know when I began to hate my body, but I do know that I was quite young. It started with my legs. My grandfather used to yell at me to straighten my feet when I walked. My father, too. Just put one foot in front of the other, pretend like you're walking on a straight line. I don't really see my legs when I walk, so I don't know what they meant. I did know that I was, quote, pigeon-toed, that if I looked down, I could see that my toes turned inward toward each other, as if they were gossiping. My grandmother mentioned that at one point they had considered putting braces on my legs to straighten them, but cost had been an issue. One day I was standing on my grandmother's patio. It was summer, I was wearing shorts and eating a popsicle. I'm not sure my age, but I couldn't have been more than 10 years old. My uncle, yes, the one who killed my mother, whistled at me, long and low, and said, "Look at those legs. They go all the way up to your ass." In hindsight, this comment makes no sense whatsoever. As far as I'm aware, everyone's legs, if they have legs, go up to their ass. But the biggest issue was the sexual undertone and the menace behind the words. When I went to summer camp, and a boy surrounded by his jeering friends pushed me down and called me bow-legged. He did this even though my arm was sprained and in a sling. Soon after, I stopped wearing shorts. I no longer wanted anyone to see my legs, and I didn't start wearing them again until I was in my 30s. There was also the matter of my teeth. After I lost my front teeth, my permanent incisors grew in. Only these were adult-sized, and as a result, they gave me a rather rabbity appearance. My chubby cheeks didn't help. "You'll grow into them," my mother had told me. Fortunately, she was mostly right, though I still think they're a little big for my mouth. But not before my father complained about how crooked they were, how discolored, how imperfect, how he wanted to get me braces but never did. If not the legs or the teeth, there always seemed to be some new issue with my body, some new problem. In high school, some boy said that he didn't want to kiss me because my lips were too thin. Another boy called my eyebrows over-tweezed. And to be fair, this is accurate. No one tells you that if you try to give yourself Christina Aguilera or Gwen Stefani eyebrows circa 1999, there's a possibility that you'll damage the hair follicles, and the hairs will never grow back. But the bullying aside, my father was the most consistent critic of my appearance. "You have too much acne. Do you even know how to use a wash rag? You're gaining weight. You need to exercise more. Stop eating so much. You have the worst posture. Sit up straight." He made these comments right up until I saw him for the last time, when I was in my 30s. The people in my life had taught me to dislike my body long before I even knew how I felt about it. This created a disconnect with my ability to be vulnerable in my body. It also made it hard to be honest with it. I was too busy trying to fix everything to react to each new blow of criticism rather than take a good look at what I really thought and felt and why. This also affected my respect toward my body. When you spend years hearing about how everything is wrong with you, it's natural to devalue your body. By the time I was a teenager, my love and respect for my body was non-existent. This disrespect grew to such a proportion that I began cutting myself in my teens. And this is not uncommon. As much as 17% of teens will self-harm. This act of self-harm is usually tied to a struggle to regulate emotions. There was also the matter of my addiction to dramatic, codependent love affairs. When I left Tennessee and got away from the pool of exes I had collected, I promised myself that I would end this pattern. In order to do so, I took a rather dramatic vow of celibacy. Before you get any ideas, this is not a religious or puritanical decision. I simply didn't trust myself to keep my own needs in the picture while I was also infatuated with someone else. My needs were the first thing that I yeeted out the window when I wanted to sleep with someone. I was trying to heal this compulsion by looking for ways to bond with people that weren't based on sex. It was the worst experience of my life. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I'm kidding, but I did react the way many people do when they're trying to break a pattern of addiction. I replaced one bad habit with another. In my case, I developed an eating disorder. I was trying to gain control of my life, of me, of something, of anything at all that would make me feel safe in my body. What is ironic about this is that when I was struggling with bulimia, I was very, very much out of control of my body. I would walk into a grocery store and find the bakery section near the front, and that first scent of sugar was enough to trigger my desire to binge. I would buy donuts or cake or whatever I had never been allowed to have but wanted, to rush home and gorge myself on it, before throwing it all up so that it wouldn't, quote, count. It felt like the ultimate rebellion, like I was somehow cheating the oppressive system I had found myself in. Then, while trying to heal bulimia, I swung to the other extreme, anorexia. My mind began playing all sorts of games to make eating okay, an unspoken checklist for when I was and wasn't allowed to eat. If I didn't eat all day, then I had earned an evening meal. If I had so much as a granola bar, though, that meal was forfeit. But if I spent a couple hours in the gym or the dojo, then I could eat. I would look in the mirror and feel physically revolted by how many imperfections I saw. I hated my body. This was my rock bottom with my body. This was when I hated it the most. If you would have told me that one day I would love eating again, that one day I'd find a healthy balance between nutrition and indulgence, that above all my negative feelings around food would be totally healed, I would have never believed you. But that's exactly what happened. You can reach a point of total and complete self-loathing of your body and still heal that relationship. I hope no one ever reaches such a low, of course. I wish for that to be true from the bottom of my heart. But should you find yourself there, struggling to forgive yourself for whatever you think you've done, slept around, hurt yourself, got addicted, hurt someone else, failed at a dream, you can still heal completely. Nothing is so bad that you can't forgive yourself. And I do mean nothing. Key section takeaways. No matter what you've done to your body, you can learn to forgive yourself. No matter how much you hate or dislike your body, you can learn to love it. Your body, no matter how imperfect, is a blessing. Being grateful for that blessing will help you feel at peace with it. Cultivating honesty and trust and respect and open communication with your body will improve your relationship with it. Healthy boundaries are essential for caring for your body so that you and others know how to treat it well. And that's it for this week's episode, dear human. I hope you found it helpful. If you are someone who struggles with their relationship with their body, I hope this was a great source of inspiration to let you know that no matter what kind of condition that relationship is in right now, you can absolutely build upon it and improve it and come to really love and appreciate your body. And so, good luck with that. I'm rooting for you, and I will be back next time with another episode of A Well Cared For Human. And until then, please take good care of you.